Hi everyone, my name is Akhil and good morning and happy Saturday. I think thanks for spending Saturday morning with us and we'll try to make it as meaningful as possible. And I would make a humble request if you can just have a short introduction in the chat wherein you can just simply mention, okay, what is your current role and which city you're from. And if I have a little bit idea about your overall background, I'll try to um, go as deeper as possible, but then we also have to keep time limit in mind, which is like 90 minutes for the session, and we have to cover like 3 to 4 topics. So folks, yeah, we are kind of in this session trying to start the first module with how internet works. And what we have seen so far is like this is an address which I have like written from random house, and which no one has traveled to, because yeah, like this doesn't exist as well, but this was more of an analogy to help you understand like every house, just like every house in the world has some address, so that we can identify it. Let's say if you want to go to this address, we just simply have to break it down to city, and then like within city which sector it is into, sorry, which area it is into, and then sector, and then a specific road, and within that to every house address, every web page in on internet, like they also have their address, and that address is something which is known as uniform resource locator, right? And let's try to break that address down. Like this typically looks like this, and within this, I'm sure you might be wondering like what this HTTPS is, right? And this is something which is a protocol which defines how the information should flow across the internet, right? And I was giving an example like if you want to travel, you would have like 4 ways to reach to Goa. One is like roadways, another could be via train, another via flight, another, I think, waterways are also there, right? So these are like 4 protocols for you to go from Mumbai to Goa, right? Similar to this, for information to flow across internet, they're like most, I would say, commonly known ways are, or most adopted ways are like HTTP and HTTPS. And HTTPS is something which is more secure, right? So and the google.com is something which is a domain name, right? But our computers don't understand text, right? They understand numbers, right? And before going and helping understand, okay, what domain name is, what DNS is, what IP address is, let's try to understand like if save all our like friends, colleagues phone number in our address book with their names, why don't we just save those numbers? Yeah, you can think in the right in the chat. No, I'm here. My question is to you, uh, that why don't we in our phone book save the kind of contact numbers of our friends and colleagues with their names? Why don't we just only save numbers? What is your answer to that? To distinguish who's who. Okay. Okay. So let's say Adverb, you want to call me, right? Can you call me just by knowing my name? But my name would be very critical for your, probably for you to recall like what Akhil's phone number is, right? So yeah, so just coming from that analogy, right? So in our phone books, right, we save like a lot of folks' contact numbers with their names, right? So that we as a user identify, okay, this number belongs to whom, right? Similar to this, these domain names are for like humans, like for us to understand, right? And for computers to understand those addresses, or what is the exact location where they have to kind of visit that web page, that is something kind of which is known as IP address, right? And the moment you put your domain name in the browser in URL, your browser first kind of looks at DNS, which is like domain name service providers. Like it's kind of a giant address book across the internet, right? Which has like the record of all domain names corresponding to which IP address, right? So once they have that identified, then that kind of then the internet helps you get the information from that specific IP address, right? So that's like understanding of how URL works, and what the breakdown of it looks like, and also what is the relation between a domain name and DNS and IP address, right? So that's like very basic of internet. Yeah, we can't remember numbers. Name is better to relate, right? But similar to machines, they can't understand text, they understand numbers, right? So kind of having that address book is kind of a large mapping which kind of helps in defining that relationship, so that as a humans we can understand, okay, what this means. Because okay, I'll give you one address to type in your browsers, and tell me what it looks like. Like, what is it that you're getting out as output? Just give me 1 second. I'm finding, where is it? Okay. IP. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm typing something in the chat. Okay, try to kind of click on this and see what is coming in. And this is like, similar to, guys, I'm not doing anything on the slide. Hear me. Why you guys are so distracted today? I'm trying to explain the concepts, right? Okay, so what I was trying to explain is what IP address is, why it is like mapped to domain name, right? Domain name is like for humans to understand, and IP address is like for computers to understand, like what is the location of a specific web page, so that they can go and they try to get the address from, right? So yeah, like this IP address is like similar to google.com for us, like because every web page has it, right? And as humans we can't remember all these IP addresses, right? It's very difficult. On the other hand, like remembering domain name is relatively easy, and also for us to kind of better understand it, better understand as well, right? Now, okay, so that was like basic understanding of kind of how this URL works, and what is the breakdown of it looks like, right? So I think domain name is something I've already talked about, and okay, now let me switch gears and let me share my screen and let me show you okay, how Amazon accepts, basically ships orders to customers, right? And I'm sure many of you would be thinking, okay, why Akhil suddenly have jumped from explaining tech to explaining, okay, how shipment or logistics works. So hold on for a minute. I think it'll be clear, like this explaining this is going to be extremely helpful for you to understand how internet works, right? So okay, see, let's say as a user you've placed like order of 20 items to Amazon, and Amazon accepted it, and there are like multiple ways Amazon can send it to you. Either Amazon can send it like one single shipment, right? If it's one single shipment, it'll be assigned to only one courier partner, right? And if Amazon decides on certain parameters that they need to split that shipment, and also like X number of shipment would be, let's say, taken by DTDC, X number of shipment would be taken by, let's say, Shadowfax, right? So there could be like multiple ways this your orders come to you, right? So let's take this scenario wherein Amazon is trying to assign this order to multiple courier partners, and what is happening is like each courier partner is basically taking one box or one shipment. So for example, let's say this 20 items shipment or order, Amazon breaks into 5 shipments, right? The moment it is breaking it, it is also labeling it as, okay, this is shipment 1 of this customer, and this is the address looks like, right? So similar to like shipment 1, all shipment would have labeling, and accordingly assigned to a respective courier partner, right? So now what these courier partners do, they like hop on like through different trucks, different location, and ensures that this specific shipment reaches nearest to the warehouse of the customers, right? And once it reaches there, some companies like consolidate everything in one go and then send it to the customers. Some companies like keep on delivering on a shipment basis, right? Okay, if I order something, okay, probably today I might receive like 2 shipments, tomorrow I might receive 3 shipments, right? But once it reached to my kind of place, what I'm doing is like I'm assembling everything. Okay, this is something I was requesting for, right? So this is how the kind of information is, sorry, the orders are like floating across when you're ordering from e-commerce. And I'm sure many of you would had experience wherein if you had ordered for example, let's say more number of items, right? Or even 3-4 items. Sometimes some items are coming via a specific courier provider. Sometimes someone else is carrying. So it keeps on happening like for different cost and that delivery reasons and as well, right? And also the type of material. So there are a lot of factors. We're not going into like how operations and logistics work, but this is like a rough flow as it looks like. Okay, so just like the way Amazon is trying to deliver these items to you, wherein first what it is doing, it is trying to, it accepted the order, then it is breaking into different shipments and then assigning to different carriers, and these carriers take the orders to the customers, and at the customer's location everything is assembled, and so this is how it happens, right? It is happening in Amazon. Similar to this, information travels across the internet, right? So similar to how Amazon delivered products to your doorstep, information also travels across the internet, right? So in internet there are two protocols which kind of helps in kind of sending that information from one location to ensuring that the kind of the end user is also receiving it, right? So the first protocol which kind of which has like a very critical role, which is known as TCP, so transmission control protocol. What it does is like it breaks the information in multiple packets, right, because of the size of the web pages, right? So in this, what we have done is like you've sent 20 items, but all 20 items can't fit in one shipment because of the size issue, and probably a courier partner can't like have a biggest shipment of like 20 items, right? So what Amazon did is it's just club into multiple shipments, right? So if your web page is like, let's say, very heavy, right? So what this TCP does is like, depending on the size of the tubes through which the information would be flown in, it breaks the content or the data into different like packets, right? And each packet is then being labeled, right? So, and when you're labeling it, you're also assigning and taking the help of IP address that we've talked about in the previous slides, right? So now we have the information bifurcated, and this information with the help of IPs are then sent to the user's device, right? And once then all the information, like all the packages, reaches to the information device, sorry, the customer's device, then it kind of reassembles itself in the right order with the help of TCP. Because if you remember, while it was breaking it down, it was also assigning a specific order, so that once that information reaches to the customer or a user, right, it can also assemble in the right order, and that's how you get the information across the internet, right? So yeah, it is like as easy as like accepting the order from the customer is just like in this case you are kind of receiving everything in almost an instant, right? So this is like the explanation of like how internet works and what probably DNS is like, what house address looks like, right? So any one of you have any query in this content that we have talked about so far, please drop it in this Google form. I'm again writing in the chat, right? While yeah, and I hope everything is fine. And really sorry for that initial interruption. It was definitely not planned. At the very wrong time, the internet like busted, and yeah, I hope we are back. All right, so I'm just quickly checking the query sheet if anyone has raised any query. Okay, no queries received so far, which means like everything is going well, right? All right. Now let's move further to the next module for the day, which is okay. This is like I've added it here, and now we're going to talk about SQL, right? Okay, all right, folks. So we're going to talk about SQL, and that is more of a short abbreviation of like structured query language, and this is the language which is kind of used to communicate with relational databases, right? And within relational databases, it helps you create, read, update, and delete data, right? And that is something which is known as CRUD operations. Many of you might have heard about, right? So, and this is SQL is more like just like we do a search on Google, right? And then we get certain data, right? So SQL is something which helps us get the data from our internal kind of data that we have stored within specific tables and all, right? So if I talk about like how it matters to product managers, so I have a little different take on this, right? So it first of all depends on company to company, right? So see, if you are in a, let's say, well established companies, right, which wherein you have proper data analysts, you have developers. Of course every company has developers, but like if your team is very lean, right, then a product manager might be expected to play, I would say, a lot around systems as well, wherein you don't like if you're giving a request to a developer that, hey, I need this data, right, but your developer would say that, hey, I need more time, I have to finish this release and all, right? So if you're like part of the companies like which are quite lean, or if you're going in a startup ecosystem, then there are like good chances that the companies would be expecting you to know SQL, right? But in my like 5 or I think 4 to 5 company experiences, and I think 3 of them I never have like written one single query. on my own, right? But in one of the company, I can't name it. There was like a lot of data that I had to keep on accessing because of the frequent meetings and all. And if I kind of delegate that work to developers or analysts that was working with me, it would have been like a lot time taking as well, right? So for the interest of time, like since I was having a decent understanding, and when I say that I am able to play with the data, which means like I don't have the access to the production table, right? I have the access of the read database, like which even if I'm not allowed to insert anything, I can just read through it, right? So PM's role kind of doing the SQL queries depends on companies to company. In a lot of the companies, it'll be very much limited as well, right? So just be cautious about that. And it's okay if you're not going like too much depth in SQL. That is something which would be not required as well, right? Okay. So moving further, I'll just quickly cover some of the concepts, which is very basic one. Apart from this operations, something I'll go into just trying to define the couple of concepts SQL works on. First is like the databases, right? So database is something which is a collection of tables, right? It's like an Excel workbook, and within a Excel workbook, you would have like multiple sheets. So if I would probably share you my screen to show it to you, it's okay. So this is something you can call a database, right? Wherein all of these sheets would look like each tables, right? And within each table, you would have like rows, columns, right? So this is, I hope this explanation makes sense, right? And what SQL does is SQL basically, helps you write or talk to this database in a way wherein instead of going manually to this sheet, it just helps you get that specific data point that you are looking for, right? And now coming back to the operations, these are like high level or the, I would say, the core applications or core operations SQL does, right? Which is like creating the data, or the second one is like reading the data, the third one is like updating the data, and fourth is a deleting the data, right? And all these operations we are also going to cover when we'll talk about APIs, because APIs, when you would want them to do certain operations at the backend, they're also running certain queries to get that or ensure that action is happening, right? So, all right, now before we go into APIs, I would just share an URL with everyone. But before sharing that URL with everyone, I'll just share my screen, and we'll do a little bit of hands-on together. Okay, can everyone open this website called sqlbolt.com? Okay. Sorry, rescheduling is not possible, but yeah. I hope the internet would work totally fine. It was just like initial glitch, and yeah. All right, so everyone please open it. And with this, like, we'll try to do a little bit of hands-on in SQL, at least try understanding how sessions and how these queries are written. Okay, so I'm not going to go and explain this because it's more of the same thing that I've talked about and explained in short, right? So let's start with writing basic SQL queries, right? So how does it written? And I think this is a task list, and this is a table, and this is with the compiler wherein we can write the queries. And if our query is right, then all the changes will see live here as well, right? Okay, so our first task is find the title of each table, right? So this is, this specific task looks like it wants to read something from the existing data, right? So whenever you want to read something, you start with select, right? And after select, what you do is like you write what you want. If you're writing star, which means like you want everything in the table, or you want every column in the table, right? And after from, you define from which table you would want this data from, right? Because in a company scenarios, you would not just have like one table, you would have like multiple tables, right? So when you're writing that queries, you need to know from which table you want to fetch the data, right? So now say that it is asking like find the title of each film, right? So instead of all, I would want it to give me the title, right? So it has given me the title. Okay, so my first task is complete, right? Now it is saying that find the director of each film, right? So instead of title, I would also want the director as well. So along with the film name, I also got the director. In fact, I have also, okay, it was asking this first. Okay, and now it would ask this, right? So this is also done, right? I think this is what the solution. Okay, title and year of, similar, right? You just change the column name, right? Find all the information about each film. So for all the information, what you do is you go and do the star, right? So all tasks are completed. This is like very basic ways of using SQL, right? No, API is not covered. API is something which will just start like probably in next 5 minutes. All right, cool. Okay, folks. Now we'll do like a little bit more. I would say not very simple queries, but a little bit of complex queries as well. So everyone understood? Everyone has the access to this platform, right? SQLbolt.com, and wherein I've just done it. Why I've shared this so that you can also practice on your own in case you're trying to miss it, right? Awesome. All right. Cool. Now the second, I'm not going to look into these theories. If you want to like run SQL, so I learn SQL like in a step-by-step manner, this could be a good resource, right? Awesome. All right. Now it is saying that find the movies with a row ID of 6, right? So it's like I would want to find the movie with row ID. So what, whenever you would want to find specific, kind of a row, or we want to put some condition, we use a clause called where, right? Where ID equals to 6. That's what, right? And now okay, now what we want to find in the next task is like find the movies released in the year between 2000 and 2010, right? So in that case, what do we use as a clause with between, right? Because we want to look for movies less than okay, movies like what should be the year greater than 2000 and less than 2010. Okay, there's something wrong with the query, so we don't have to worry about it's already did it for us, right? So I'll quickly explain you. So what it wanted, like it want the movies, okay, not this one. It want, like, this is the query of the second task, which is like find the movies released in the year between 2000 2010, right? So first it has selected the column that it wanted, like title and year, like, and from which table, and where year is like between this, right? So yeah, that's how I think the previous query would have done wrong. Okay, I didn't had to add this. Okay, now it worked, right? So okay, and I want it all, so I can also write that I only need title, and yeah, so yeah, similar outcome, but I've just written it in a different way, right? So cool. All right, find the first 5 Pixar movies and their release year, right? So if I delete everything, what are Pixar movies? I think everything is Pixar movies. Pixar is where, what there's nothing called as Pixar here, right? So it is asking me to find everything. So what I'll do is, like, when we go to find everything, you click here, star, where is the star? And then instead of writing this, you can write limit, right? Limit 5. So limit is a kind of another functionality within SQL, wherein if you want, like, first 5 results, then you can limit your overall outcome to, like, I only want like the first 5 data points, right? You want like 7, then the 7 data points would come in, right? If you want 2 3, it'll accordingly come in, right? So yeah, this is like a more of a playground for SQL if you want to like kind of learn step by step like how everything works, right? So any queries in this, of course, we can keep doing it whole day because I'll take like a lot of time. So I'll just click here. It has, instead of putting limit, it has like put this constraint as well, so anything works. So I'll just also move next. Okay, there are like other tasks, right? Find all the Toy Story movies, right? So in this, like, there's an application of a functionality called like, I believe, right? Wherein in all the movies where the title would be resembling with this, right? So it will be fetching it, right? So you can keep on looking. The second is like find all the movies where the director name is this, right? So you can keep on doing it like all day, and this is something which will really help you understand, like, how everything works. Okay. Cool, guys. Any other queries? Please write in the in the Google form, which must be there in the chat again. I don't think it is there. One second, let me share it again. Okay, I'm not sure. None of you are having queries. I hope I'm able to explain it and you're able to grasp it. All right, cool. All right, I think we are almost in time. We are just like almost 5 minutes here and there, but that should be quite manageable. I have not received any further queries, so we'll just, yeah, cool. All right, so similar to this, like, you can continue using yeah, you can continue using SQL and do like extensive operations. Like for cohort members, we will like schedule one detailed SQL masterclass wherein we'll go, I think, a lot more deeper into like other functionalities like joining the tables, right? How do you how do you go about solving the complex queries and all? So stay tuned for that. But I think this is also a good go-to resource, right? What type of interview questions can we expect? Money, please write in the Google form queries, because we would be sharing it to you. Don't worry. But yeah, what type of interviews questions can we expect in PM interviews on SQL? Right, proper question in the Google form. Yeah, we'll answer it. Right, awesome. So cool. I think the first module, which is like how internet works, and then what is SQL. I hope this is like understood to like many of you. And then I think let me start with the other module, which is like the APIs. Right. Cool. Okay, we are here. Let me see if it's like working fine. Okay, now everything is working fine. All right, cool. Now let's take quick 10 seconds break so that we are able to exhaust, kind of quickly absorb like whatever we have gone through. All right, in the meantime, if you have any queries, okay, guys, I know a guy who works in Microsoft and who is managing the Teams product, right? I'm going to pass it definitely to them. All right, I'm sure the screen is visible now. Yeah, and the guy name is Ayan. If you want to like search him on LinkedIn and ask him, hey, why team fluctuates so much? Like, good conversation with him. But yeah, all right, cool. Okay, should we start on APIs? Quick thumbs up in the chat, like once you guys give me the go ahead. This is going to be an interesting exercise because we're going to also do a hands-on on Postman as well. So like a lot of learning is going to happen. All right, all right. And a quick pride, yes. Should we start with APIs? All right. Okay, everyone giving thumbs up. All right, great. I think we're good to start. Screen sharing, Anupama, I am not sure. Fix your teams. That's the only answer I have now. Or ensure that you have the latest version. All right, cool. I'm sure it should be visible for everyone. Okay. All right, APIs for product managers, like this is another part of the masterclass. That's why I have it like in a different slide. So we'll try to explain you APIs with deep technical knowledge, like but not too deep so that it just starts going over our head. But like how can you confidently also start working with the tech team, and a lot of applications we're going to cover of APIs that we see in our like day-to-day lives, right? When we work with a lot of engineers as well, right? Awesome. So let's move further. Like before taking this session on, I just want to understand, like on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with APIs? On a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with APIs? And 5 means like super comfortable, which means like it's great, you're doing a refresher. But 1 is like you've just heard about it, like yeah. Awesome. All right. Okay. All right. Great. Awesome. Let's move forward. Okay, so folks, API, it's a short abbreviation of application programming interface, and this basically helps two systems talk to each other, right? So you can either and these two systems either could be a client side or the server side, or it could be a server to server side communication as well, right? So whenever two systems wants to communicate to each other, API is like one of the I would say most adopted ways of communication, right? So I'm going to again take an infamous example, which many of you must have definitely heard about, which is like a waiter analogy. So let's say how this happens, right? So let's say you went to a restaurant and you basically called the waiter, right? And you've given your food order, and what this waiter does is like it takes your food order, goes to the kitchen, and kitchen prepares it, and this waiter then brings back your food and serves to you, right? So what waiter is acting as is API, because it is taking your request, right, and then taking to kitchen. Kitchen is a server, right? And server processes that request, right? And once the processing is complete, then sends back that data using that API again to the front end or the client, right? So this is like a analogy to understand how APIs work. So quickly from a digital kind of application perspective, so from all the application that we use like on a day-to-day basis, right, we keep on requesting like x number of tasks on that, right? So whenever we are requesting that task is then being taken by APIs to the servers, and then servers kind of process that request, and whatever is the data, that data they carries back to the whoever has requested it, and that's where it is displayed or consumed in the way like it is designed, right? So yeah, this is like another analogy for it, like your client app sends the request via API, which then goes to servers where the database querying happens, and once the data is retrieved, then APIs takes the data and send to the client application, right? This is like a one application of what APIs enable. I think all these like four features. Like first is modularity, like you just have to build for example, let's say you build a login flow, right? So you don't have to keep on building different login flow for, let's say, mobile, web, or different OSs, right? You just have to like build one API, and that API would be helping you like complete that use case across systems and all, right? Cool. The speed is something it also brings. Let's say you are starting a D2C brand, right? And you want to let's say collect digital payments. So you can very comfortably connect with companies like Razorpay, JustPay, right? Who's like offering payment services, right? So in just like probably plug and play interaction, you can just start launching a product. So it also helps you get that speed as well in the market, and it of course works across like different ecosystems. It is scalable as well, and so this is like which is like I would say the core benefit of APIs, and that is why it is kind of widely adopted in the market as well, right? Now moving further, what we'll do now is like I'll try to explain you a couple of use cases, but before explaining that, I'll just go to and show things to you a PM way, right? So that it'll be easy for you to understand this. Just give me one second. Okay, so here if we let's talk about the OTP flow, right? And this is something I'm talking about this screen. Okay, so see, APIs have like uses across internal ecosystems and also external ecosystems as well, right? So what we're going to do is like we're going to like pick one of the flow, and then we're going to kind of try to explain okay where API is coming into the picture and how you can understand it well, right? So now let's go further. Okay, now let's see that. Let's talk about that onboarding flow, and I'll probably put this card here and I'll put it here. So let's say that OTP verification flow, right? So let's say you opened any application. Let's say you opened Swiggy, right? And Swiggy asks you to kind of sign in or log in, right? So wherein app asks users to log in, right? Once you click on login, then you basically enters mobile number, right? Once you enter it, then next CT, probably the CTA would look like get OTP, right? And once you have clicked on it, then the next CTA would look like submit OTP, and next message could be successfully verified. If you broke down this flow further, then you can say that okay, unable to verify, right? That also could be one flow. What does that look like? But we are not going to user flows and details and all, right? Okay, so now this is like a typical user flow as it looks like. All right, now I'll just shorten down this to this. All right, so here what is happening, right? So you're asking users to log in, and you're entering your mobile number, and then here is like when you're requesting the application to send you an OTP, right? And OTP is something which is basically being sent with the help of telecom providers like Airtel, Jio, or Vodafone, right? Or whichever are the players which are existing in the market, right? Or there are like different services like Gupshup, Twilio, right? Which have like API services to send the kind of SMS, right? if Swiggy wanted to build their own like SMS sending services, like it would not have made sense to them because it's not their core business, right? But this is something which is very critical for their business so that they can, authenticate users like in I would say scalable or a faster way possible, right? So what they do is like, they have like integrated with, let's say, Gupshup, right? And so the moment the user clicks on get OTP, Gupshup's get OTP API is then triggered, and once you hit that kind of API, then users receives the message, right? So once user receives the message, receive the SMS, right? SMS with that OTP, right? So now once user receives the message, then they submit it, right? And within submission, I'll probably take it to the like this flow. Once you've I'll probably take it here so that it's distinguishing, right? Once you submit it, right, then another API is triggered, which is known as verify, verify OTP API, right? So this is where the API interventions are coming in to ensure that in the real time, you as a company are able to send SMSs, right? Once user have received that SMS, then user would click enter that OTP on the screen and then click on submit OTP CTA, right? Once you click on this CTA, then another API which is being triggered, which would help Swiggy verify whether this user is entering the right OTP or not. If the user is entering the right OTP, then you would be going into this flow and then landing on the home page, right? So this is what it looks like, right? Anyone has any queries in this? It's good to stop here and take queries. You can write queries in the Google form or in the chat. I would recommend. Which tool is this? Yeah, I'm using Whimsical here. All right, Indu, if you leave your web address or IP address, we'll definitely send it to you. All right, great, cool. Anyone has any queries in this? I'm seeing no queries received so far. All right, it's great. Looks like the explanation is making sense. Gupshup is one of the service provider. I think Twilio also does it, right? So yeah, wherein you can probably integrate with their APIs and then you'll be able to send OTPs. All right, no queries. I think looks good. Now coming back to the slide. Now similarly, understand other external API integrations. First is like booking. So I'm sure many of you might be going to these travel platforms like MMT or GoIbibo to book flights, right? So MMT is something which is not owning all the airlines, which means like it doesn't have the data of all the airlines in terms of their availability, their pricing on a specific date, duration for a location, right? So what Make My Trip does whenever you're sending that, like, hey, I'm looking for flight from Mumbai to Paris for this specific date. So what Make My Trip does is like first it verifies, okay, which all airlines goes to this location. Once it knows that data, then it triggers another API, which is something can known as probably inventory APIs, right? So once that kind of API is triggered, then that API gives the response back. Okay, on this date, these are the flights which are going from this location to this location, and this is the pricing or whatever the further details are required, right? So this is like this flow of booking flight or seeing the availability of flight might look like, right? Similarly, Myntra using Shadowfax, right? That's something we have also covered in internet work example, right? So once you've received a customer order from the customer, how would you send it to the customer? The one way is like you build your own kind of logistic services, which will be heavily expensive, right? The fastest way to go to the market is like look for the, I would say, logistic providers wherein you can simply plug and play, integrate with them, right? And once the customer comes and places the order, you can simply hand over that order to them, and it then becomes their responsibility to ensure that the order reaches to the customer in the right time, right? So that's like another application of that. Now, if we look into like couple of other internal application of APIs, I'm sure like when we are going to Amazon, I would say other platforms like Flipkart, Nykaa, right? We'd be looking for a specific keywords, right? Hey, show me shirts, show me glasses, show me cartoons, whatever it is, right? So whenever you are like, entering that query, then the search API is triggered, which then try to make sense of these keywords and then try to look into the product feed or a catalog feed with that items and then shows the details to you, right? Okay, and the next flow, which is like comes as PDP. So PDP is a product detail page. So I'll quickly explain your e-commerce flow. So first is a home page. Second is, let's say you are searching for a certain item. So when you search for it, then you would see that there's a landing page wherein you'll see all the items in different cards and all, right? So these cards are something which is called as product listing page, right? So multiple products are listed on one page, right? When you click on a specific card, which means like you want to know more information about that specific item. So when that happens, that is something, lands you to a page which is known as product detail page, right? So from PLP, which is a product listing page with multiple cards out there, right? If you want to know more about the product, then you would again hit an API wherein you would say that, hey, I want to know more details about that product, right? So when you go to product detail page, you can see like there are like multiple images, there are like, seller information, return information, right? Different sizes the product is available in, different colors it is available in, right? So all that information is coming like once you have hit that query, right? Now a lot of times, in fact, we don't just do the query on the search result search box that we see. Some of the banners on the homepage might be, I would say, decently creative, right? So when we're clicking in on a specific banner, let's say the banner says that, hey, show me latest deals, right? So it then hits the API, which knows like, what the latest deal information is. The moment you click on it, you get all that information, right? So these are like some of the external and internal, use cases. Why I've covered like across the category use cases, so that you can understand like, this is like, I would say deep down into the flow. It's just not like one specific part wherein this is used, right? This is used across the product ecosystem, front end, back end, server to server interaction as well. All right, cool. So I hope this makes sense to you, everyone. All right, let's move forward. If anyone has any queries, I'll just take a pause for 10 seconds. Please drop your queries in the query form that I've shared. Let's take a 10-second pause because we are running, I think very decent on time, and then I don't want to rush as well, right? So give me 1 second. If you guys have missed that form, again, I'm resharing it. Where did it went? All right, I'm writing again, sharing in the chat. Yeah. Guys, please write your queries, the Google form. Yes, I'm not sure. Does it allow to pin it? Oh, it allows to pin it. I've just pinned it. Yeah, thank you. What was it? Arjun. Thanks, Arjun. All right. Okay, I've not received any queries. I'm still waiting for another. Okay, no queries. Looks like we are running good. Thank you, folks. Let's move forward. All right. I hope my screen is visible. Before moving forward, let's understand these, like some of the key concepts, and some of the key concepts that we're going to talk about is request and response, endpoint, methods. This is like, which will be exactly same as the SQL operations that we learned about, headers, parameters, and JSON and authentication, right? So we're going to look into all of these key components as we are going along, right? So let's move forward. Okay, so the first term that we are talking about is request, right? So whenever you let's say your user like say that, okay, can I get the full info of Nike shoe, a specific shoe, right? So when you would want your app to give you that information, then you are requesting the application for it, right? And then that request is being like carried by API, and then sends that request to the server, and then servers give a kind of response, and then you show those details on a specific end from where the query has been raised, right? So this is what like request and response looks like. And endpoint is something which is the right location. So let's say you are on a specific application, and you would want that from the previous screen, let's say shoe data, but you hit the kind of a raise up API, you would not get that information because you're not hitting the right URL. So different type of information are stored in different type of databases or different type of tables, right? So if you want the information, you have to define the endpoint very correctly, right? Endpoint is basically the path where the information that you're looking for would be hosted. So if you don't know the endpoint, you would not be able to get or fetch that information, right? So endpoint is just to summarize, like a location which has the data that you are looking for, right? Okay, so I'll give you one more like real life example. I'm sure many of you might have visited McDonald's, right? And in McDonald's, there are the like two counters. One is like which just takes burger orders, and there's one counter which take like ice cream orders and all, right? Or dessert orders. So if you go to dessert counter and ask for burger, it'll say that, hey, no, I don't take that order. You go to that counter, right? So which means like if you go to the wrong location, you would not get what you're looking for, right? So if you go to the right location, then you would get what you're looking for, right? So that's what in endpoint looks like. And of course, if you are like not kind of entering the wrong endpoint or authorization authentication issues and all, right, then you'll get a error as well, right? And that error is then differently coded and in different codes, which is like HTTP methods. We'll talk about it as we go along, right? Cool. So method is something we have kind of talked about in SQL, but I'll just quickly summarize it. Okay. So in APIs, like there are similar to CRUD. I think this is CRUD only, but it's like a, I would say slightly different way to put it, right? So in APIs, if you want, let's say to fetch data, right? So fetching data means there's already a table where the data is hosted. You just want to access that data, right? So when you want to fetch the data which is already existing, then you call the method known as get, right? So for example, in terms of e-commerce products or let's say Netflix, right? So when you are, let's say, searching for what John Wick movies, right? I'm not sure they are there on Netflix, but still. So what your query does, it looks into the existing movie database and finds, okay, do we even have John Wick movies? If it has, then it sends the response back to you, right? So that's what get does, right? Now, what post does, right? Post creates new data in your existing DB, right? So let's say let's here take an example of Paytm, right? So whenever you are, let's say, initiating a new payment, right? So whenever you initiating a new payment with the help of APIs, you're like basically triggering a method post because you want to create a new transaction, right? So whenever the new transaction is happening, you are like updating that information in a specific DB, right? Put is something wherein you would want to update data. For example, if you ordered something on let's say e-commerce website, and you would want to change your address, right? So instead of, let's say, Bangalore HSR sector 10, you would want that order to come at like sector 6, right? So you can place that request to customer support, or if it allows post order placement to change the address, you can also do it, right? So that is like one way. Delete is a another method which helps you cancel something which is already in progress, right? So this is like as self-explanatory as it could, right? So anyone has any queries? I've pinned the query form. I am just looking again if anyone has any queries. Okay. Explain the possibilities and roadmap to switch to career into this is okay. We'll talk about it. I think okay. Okay, what is www is subdomain, right? Okay. No. Yeah, I think this one person's query. Mohammed, I think your query is something which we should take one-to-one, or we'll probably take at the end of the session, right? So APIs when not to use, like there are like a lot of scenarios wherein you can decide. See, when you don't need, let's say, dynamic or external data, that could be a point wherein you don't use APIs. Another kind of step could be like when performance is critical and your API latency is too high, right? You don't need that, right? If you want like processing to be super faster, wherein if it's an internal environment, you can really control it. Like, so it depends on a specific use cases wherein you can decide, okay, instead of API as a way to communicate or transfer or exchange information, you can use like different other socket ways to exchange information as well, right? So there are like a lot of other kind of ways to kind of exchange or transfer the information which also exist over the internet, right? I'm looking for any other query which anyone else has. I'm just looking to the query form. Okay, why it is not showing it here? All right. Okay. Does API provide security for companies' data? Yes, definitely it does, right? Otherwise, why would anyone would want to jeopardize their entire data, right? That's oil, right? So definitely there's like, see, whenever you're sending the data, it is encrypted. There are like different methods of encrypting the data, and only whoever is the receiver, they knows like how to decrypt it, right? And also you don't send all the information which is like non-critical to the companies. You only send the information which is like critical to them, right? So yeah, security is like topmost. But if you talk about like a banking and legacy system, there they are like right now still using SOAP, which is another API architecture, right? Right now what we're talking about, which is largely REST way of doing the APIs, right? Okay, all right. Now we'll move to the session. All right, good. Now moving further. Okay, oh, yeah. All right, headers, like in a lot of API documents you'll see headers as well. Headers are more of a side instruction. So for example, let's say you've placed a order in a restaurant, and in that restaurant, instead of, let's say, food to be spicy, you say that, okay, I want less spicy food, right? So you if you want to give like side instructions, that is where you can use headers. A lot of times also carry your authorization keys as well. In headers, you can also define how servers should read your data, or in what format it is kind of sending the data. So you can, all the additional information that you would want server to consider, you can like make it part of your headers as well, right? So that is what like headers called as. And next is authentication. Okay, so there are like different applications. So for example, Swiggy, right? So if you go to Swiggy would not allow you to do anything unless you log into it, right? As long as my memory goes, even if it does, but let's try to understand the use case, right? So a lot of applications first want to authenticate users, right? And then they allow users to do anything on the application, right? So authentication is defining or letting the system or the product know that who are you. It's similar to like showing your ID at the airport, right? The second step is authorization, right? So when you went within the application, right, what is it that you're allowed to do, right? Are you sending the request like which you are not authorized with, right? So this authorization methods, it helps companies secure that only the right users, or the users who are qualified to perform that action, they are like performing or making those changes. For example, let's say you went about, you just angry with a friend and you want to cancel their orders every time they're placing a new order on Swiggy, just to trouble them, right? Swiggy would not allow you to do that, right? Because you're ideally not allowed to interrupt in other users functionalities, right? Because you're not authorized to do it. But probably admin from the backend can do it, right? Of course they should have a proper reasons to do it, but they still have the access to it because they are authorized to do it. All right, cool. So this is like understanding of authentication and authorization looks like. So see, um, the folks like who have either interned in product or are working as a product managers, many times you would have noticed that there are a lot of like bugs coming in, a lot of issues users facing end to end, right? So when you don't define the type of error that is happening, then it becomes very difficult to kind of I would say solve it as soon as possible, because you actually have to like go through each and everything which is happening at the backend or happening in the system, right? So these error codes helps companies understand quickly, okay, what type of error it is, right? So that accordingly they can start focusing on that. If you don't know what type of error it is, you actually have to end up looking into all type of errors, right? So if you look at whenever you're getting a 200 as a response back whenever you're triggering certain APIs, you'll ensure you'll understand that okay, everything is working fine, right? These are some of the universal codes which defines, okay. 400 is like it's a bad request, right? You're not entering the right parameters. For example, if you're doing this OTP verification, right? So for Gupshup to send you a message, it needs 10-digit mobile number if you're an Indian customer. But on the other hand, if you've written like 6-digit mobile number, it would not send you. So it's like it'll send you like a 400 error or something like that. Similarly, you can read like other type of error codes which are also defined here, right? All right, so I think this is it. API documentation will go into, okay, so this is like a basic definition of basically APIs that I wanted to cover. And now what we'll do is like, we'll go and do the hands-on into Postman, right? I'm not sure many of you know what Postman is. Postman is a tool or a platform which helps you play around the APIs, right? So before you kind of kind of launch those features to end customers, you can also test them probably using tools like Postman to understand okay whether they're working fine end to end or not, right? So all right, so okay, now quick question to everyone: how many of you have tried working on Postman earlier? Okay, I would again request, if any one of you comfortable being on camera, it really looks very lonely in camera here, but if you're on camera, it really help us get the vibe that you are able to understand the concepts and all. Okay, so this now is working. Okay, all right. Okay, one of you working. Okay, she's quick to answer. Okay. Okay, so Mianji is asking me to give an example of real life for a website like Zomato and Amazon on how this get post REST API work. Okay, I can do that. All right, so let's take an example of Zomato, right? So in Zomato, and let's take a situation that, okay, there's a new user, right? I'm just downloading Zomato like first time, and I went into the application, and I'm a new user to the platform, right? Then I have to sign up, right? So whenever I'm doing a sign up, the API is the method that they need to use is like a post method, right? Because that ultimately that API has to end up creating me as a user in the system, right? So that is where, in case of basically onboarding a new user, I would go about creating a kind of or triggering an API which is using a post method, right? Now let's take an example of a get method, Mianji. So get is, let's say you went to Zomato homepage, and let's say you have a sweet tooth, right? And you would want to look for all the restaurants who are offering like gulab jamun. So you search for gulab jamun, right? So what is happening in the backend is like the search API is taking that keyword, right, and then using a get method because it already has all that information in the database, right? And it is querying the database and then bringing all the restaurants back to you who is able to serve gulab jamun, right? So I hope that makes sense. Okay, Prashant is like, okay, I've just explored and failed. Okay, I would try that you don't meet the same fate again. All right, so folks, I'm sharing my screen on Postman. All right, so this is like the landing page looks like once you complete the or does the onboarding. If you want to like play around along with me as well, so you can also go to postman.com. I'll share the URL in the chat. And all right, I've shared the URL in the chat. If anyone of you wants to play around Postman along with me. Okay, I'll go to my workspace. It's loading that up. Right, I'll create another collection, blank collection. I'll probably, okay, I'll name it here, Tech for PM Masterclass. All right, so, and of course, for you guys to get we'll go to Poke API. So I'm also, can you share the URL I've shared in the chat, Arun? And also open this Poke API because from here we're going to kind of reference a lot of.
Just give me a couple of minutes, Akil.
Okay, Arun, that's all right. Okay, so let's take 10 seconds break while everyone is like finishing the sign up on Postman, because it's really good to be confident on it, right? And I'll try to kind of explain as much as I can for you. And we'll also do one more thing. We'll use we'll run an API query which will help us connect with our chat GPTs and all, right? So we'll also do that. So stay tuned. Let's take 10 seconds for everyone to. I'll quickly grab water for everyone to complete the onboarding on Postman, right? All right, folks, once your Postmans are set up, please write in the chat, I'm good to go. Then we'll start. Okay, it's good to go.
Okay.
All right, sorry. All right, okay, let's start. Okay, and I'm sure everyone is on this page, pokeapi.go. So these are like, and guys, please be on mute. Yeah? Don't unmute yourself, please.
Okay.
If you have queries, please drop in the chat. I think this one will take here to save time. All right. So this is something which is known as a base URL, and this is something which is a path, which defines within this base URL where I can find the information, right? So what we'll do is we'll copy this endpoint, we'll go to the Postman, and we'll click on plus add request. This is a new get request, right? So let's say I'm calling it as a Poke API, and here I'm going to enter my endpoint, right? And this is it doesn't require any authentication, authorization, and all. It's like an open source. So we'll just click here. You'll see that okay, I've successfully received all the information. That's where I got 200 as a success code, right? And it shows the response in the form of JSON, right? And to many of you, JSON might be an alien language, but that's all right. We don't have to worry about it. We can quickly click on preview, wherein it shows everything in a tabular format, right? So and I think this API is helping us know more information about a specific Pokemon, like a character, right? So this Pokemon character has these abilities: Limber, Imposter, right? It also has like cries. Okay, it's like OGG files. They're like audio files. So you can also copy these audio files and see if it's working. Okay, it downloaded something, right? And it'll download these audio files if you want to hear okay, how Ditto cries, right? Okay, someone actually cried. Okay, uh, okay, I've downloaded this, and it was actually played itself, right? These are forms. Okay, we anyway don't have to worry about all the information that is coming across. We just have to see that okay, we have hit this endpoint, and it is giving us the information that we are looking for, right? Now we'll go to again this, and let's say we want to know more about Pokemon species, right? So on species, we have again taken a different endpoint, and we've pasted here, and it has done this, right? So we are trying to know about okay, Aggie slash there's a species, and the color of the species, and all those information about it is already here, right? So this another endpoint application of this we can see. And if we go further, let's say that if you want to know about a specific ability, we can also click here and simply get the endpoint and hit it, right? Now let's try to do something different, which is a critical concept to understand and know. Okay, so here, see, this is something which looks like endpoint, right? So after endpoint, if you want to add any parameters, they are added after this question mark, right? So anything which is coming after question mark is being considered as parameters, right? So I'll explain you what these parameters are as well in a moment as cool. So let's say now we are hitting it, and it's showing all these parameters, which is here, right? So yeah, so we have hit this kind of endpoint, which tells, I think, everything about this Pokemon database. So it's saying that, okay, we have almost 1302 entries, and limit is something which basically helps us define, okay, how much response data we can accept, right? So in many of the, I'll give you one example as well. So let's say we go to the product space job board, right? So let's say we are here, right? So when you are clicking on this job board, you're getting only this 9 jobs right now, yeah, because on this page we don't want to show, let's say, 1,000 jobs, otherwise it'll be very difficult for anyone to find out, right? And we want these information to, let's say, keep coming in when the user is going to a different page, right? So this is where the limit is coming into the picture. So when we are triggering this API, I would want it to give me the first 9 messages, right? So that is where we can define what the limit should be. Let's say now we know that maximum count that it has 1302. Let's say I'm looking for only 100 data points. Now it given me only 100 data points, right? Now I hope the limit is understood, wherein it basically defines okay, how much data you can showcase on your front end or in one go, or you want to kind of showcase to ensure that your user experience is intact. All right, and now let's say that we need 12 entry 12 kind of responses from this API. So you can see that. Okay, now to understand offset, right? So offset is something which says that, okay, so when you click on limit, right, limit gives you first 12 responses in the table that it is able to find out, right? So if you add offset as 0, it is just going to share you the first 10 responses, right? But What if you'd want a response, let's say, like which is after the first five, right? So in that case, you'd want to offset it by 5 or 2, right? So now let's remember this. Let's look into this table. This is having a 12 responses, right? Now, if I offsetted it by 1, then this Bulbasaur won't come, right? So let's offset it by 1, because this won't show me the first data point, right? So see in the results, we still got 12 data points because our limit is set at 12, but we have not received this first one, the Bulbasaur that we've seen, right? All right. Now, okay. Now let's say if you want to offset it by 12, right? Then I think our answer would start from either Metapod or Butterfree. Let's say where it starts with, it starts the response with Weedle. All right, because okay, okay, let's see what happened here. Let's go to 0. Okay, 0 again gave us the same order, right? Now let's say we want to offset it by 10, right? Which means like we don't want the 0 to 9 answers. We want the, in the next page that the user would go into, the further information has to start from Metapod, right? So in that case, what we'll do is like we'll try to offset it by 10. So when we are trying to offset it by 10, you can see that the responses are starting from Metapod, right? So this is the kind of functionalities which would help you get those details. So how this works in real time, that okay, if you landed on the home page, you'll find only the next first 9 results. When you go to the second page, it shows you the next 9 job openings, right? Which means like it offsetted these job openings by the first 9. That's how these like pagination is being designed, right? So this is like a one application of yeah, APIs, right? Now we'll go to another API wherein which is we're going to play around. I would say the scatfact.ninja. So I'll share this. Yes, pagination in UI. That's like a. In fact, if you go to IMDb, you'll find that I'll again show you like 10 movies and all. So this like I would say widespread application of this functionality. Now we'll quickly go into this. So in this case, let's say that try it out. Okay, max length, execute. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this curl. Okay, I hope it is copied. It's copied. Right. Let's say you don't know how to configure endpoint or how like where to put parameters, authorization and all. That's where curl is something which curl comes for your rescue, wherein everything is like written in a raw text and you can simply just import it and just fill all the information where it should be, right? So how when you won't want to add curl to your collections, you have to click on import, and when you're clicking on import, you just have to simply, because what I've done is like I've gone here, I've copied this curl, which has like the endpoint, which also have defined like headers. In headers, like you're giving this information that the whatever the responses would be coming, they'll be coming in a JSON format. And this is the authorization token, which has already been added, right? So now I'll go to my Postman. I'll done this, right? I've just copy pasted the call, right? So it has like read this and it wanted me to add this in a collection name, tech for PM Masterclass. I've imported this into collection. See, it has come here, right? So I've not done anything. I've just copy pasted that call. My endpoint came here. Authorization, I have not added anything separately, because authorization you can also add in authorization and also in headers as well, right? So you can see that this authorization token is added here, and in the format like the data would be coming from is also defined, which is this, right? And what I have to do is like now click on send. You've got the response. This is like not giving it. So basically, okay, what this API is doing, look at this endpoint, right? It is giving us the cat facts, right? And within this, we've already defined the limit. Only give us the cat facts, which is having the max length of 100, right? So it like probably there's no cat fact which is like coming within that 10 length characters. So what we'll do is like we'll have to increase the length of 100 and then enter. Okay, now we have got this one cat fact. Cool. So this is like another application of curl, and now we'll go quickly to Gemini, right? And we'll try hitting our Gemini APIs from Postman and not from Gemini like a ChatGPT interface and all, right? So do you want to do that? Can we show failed response will also see. Don't worry. I think in the Gemini one will showcase you the failed response. So API Studio Gemini. If I go into, so if you want to go into Gemini, you'll have to go to Google Studio. So the URL to go to the Gemini API is from writing in the chat as well. I'm here. Within here, I would want the API keys, right? And I can generate my API key from here. I think it'll give me some free credits. Should give. If it doesn't give, then we'll see what to do. I have a different account as well, but let's see if the free account works or not. Otherwise, I'll use this. So this is the curl that we've copied, right? So what we have to simply do is like copy this curl, and then click on import, and then copy it and import into collection TechPoPM Masterclass. And now you can see that it has red. Okay, it doesn't have like any parameters right now. It also doesn't have separate authorization, but authorization is something which is here, and body is something wherein you can define the message that you would want to run, right? Okay, so the message that we want to, or the query that we want to run in Gemini is like explain how AI works in a few words, right? So instead of API, I would do a how API works. Oh, bad request, right? So why that bad request came in? Because if you look into in headers, I have not defined the API key, right? Because I'm not authorized to run this query, right? So in this case, what I'll do is like I'll go to again this Gemini Studio, and I'll click on create API key. Okay, and it'll give me trial. Okay, I'll probably create any product space one, existing product. Let's say it might still not work because I'm not sure if in this account the billing is set up, but let's give it a try. But I'll show you how does it work. So I'll just copy paste this. Okay, it still doesn't work, probably because it's not a billing account. I'll get the API key from a different account. My first project. 1 second. Okay, I'm hoping it should work, but let's see if it doesn't. Oh, it worked, right? Great. What a feeling, right? When things like doesn't work and then starts working. All right. So we have run this body, which was a query. Okay, explain how API works in a few word, and it given me a response in JSON, which I said like could be alien to many of us. So we don't have to worry about it. We'll simply have to go to candidates, wherein it has kind of put everything whatever the response you got in a tabular format, and when we've asked it like explain how API works, it said that okay, an API lets different software systems or different softwares talk to each other, right? Many of you thinking, okay, I think one of you asked explain let's say when not to use API in, let's say, 200 characters. Send this query. Let's say, okay, don't use API when direct database access is faster, easier, simple, internal logic. See, so now you don't need to go to Gemini interface. If you have APIs, you can probably integrate this API with your product flow and then let the customers talk on it. But it's not that easy, but it's like a good application of it, right? Let's go into the API documentation. Okay. All right, folks. Now we are moving into understanding API documentation, and we've been talking about. I planned to have this covered, but then let's have it now, right? So API documentation is something at a high level looks like this, and depending on the complexity, like in a lot of companies, like they can follow a different format as well. And I'll tell you what could be missing as well in this documentation, so that you understand like how to read this. Okay, so whenever you get us documentation from any company to integrate their products and their offerings, right? So how does it go? Basically, it first gives an overview. Okay, this is a step-by-step integration guide for onboarding users via OTP using GovShip's APIs, right? Covering sending OTP, verification, and account creation, right? Okay, so first, you're going to know about API endpoints. So like the first OTP is about sending. First API is about sending OTP, right? So in all the API documentation, what I have seen, first they define the method, right? So when you want to send OTP, you want to create something new in the system, right? So this is a version one, and this is something which is known as a path of the endpoint, and has to be connected with the base URL, right? And somewhere they might have written a base URL as well. So Cool. So you have to, like, when you're calling this API, you have to define the method as post and connect this path with the base URL and then hit it with the details, right? And in your headers, it is saying that, okay, in headers, if you want successful response from this API, do ensure that you're sending the information in JSON format, and you're adding your authorization key as well, right? And your request body is something which looks like this, which is in a JSON format, wherein you're trying to define key value pairs, right? So this is a key and this is a value, right? And like the first key is phone number, and another key, the corresponding value is the mobile number, right? And the channel that you want to send the OTP from is the SMS, right? A lot of times you would have also seen that, okay, send the OTP to me via WhatsApp, right? So when you are clicking on that button, at that time channel is selected as WhatsApp, so that you'll get that OTP on WhatsApp, right? So if you get a response, so in the cases this is hit successfully, right, then you'll get 200 response, and you'll get, these two information from the gupshup that, hey, the message was sent, and the specific session ID allocated to that specific request is this, right? How this ID would be helpful, because the user would be, after receiving this OTP, would also be sending that verification request again, right? So at that time, like, to do the backend checking and all, you would want to share that session ID as well, right? Now, second is you want to verify OTP. Again, in this as well, they're going to use a very kind of a post method, right? So in the post method, they're like, verifying OTP. Again, there's a different endpoint. You can say that OTP/verify, right? So validate the OTP provided by the user, same headers that we talked about. Now, in this request body, you'll again send phone number, OTP that entered by the user, and the session ID, right? And if all these things are correct as per the Gupshup's ecosystem, then it'll say, okay, OTP verified, and give you a temporary token to basically, onboard the user and give the experience. So this is what it looks like. I've added one more like this, like little extensive, but I hope this API documentation is something which helps you understand like how to go about reading this documentation. Apart from that, and I would say a little bit detailed documentations, you would also see the table which defines these key value pairs in a lot more detail, right? Wherein along with a phone number, you would also be saying, okay, the phone number would be accepting the, let's say, values in a string format or text format or varchar, right? So wherein you can define different data types and all, right? So you'll also see a lot of documentation. There's a table which talks about, okay, the the values or the limitations or the maximum character length that a specific key could be assigned to, right? So that you are not able to hit at least those basic errors wherein you are not doing the right, or where you're not putting the right kind of values as well, right? See, I'll tell you where the challenge could come in. Let's say if you're not let's take an example of, you're trying to hit Swiggy API, or you would want to onboard yourself to Swiggy, right? And you have entered your 6-digit mobile number, right? And Swiggy has clicked on it, right? Allowed you to click on it, and then that request is going sent to Gupshup. It would not work because the mobile number is not correct, right? But Swiggy at least know that for mobile number to be correct, it at least has to have 10 digit, right? So why are you not putting that restriction up front, which is like universal, which that use case is something has to be true for all the users, then only it'll work, right? So whenever there are certain cases which has to be true for all the users, you put the upfront validation in user interface, so that like the number of failures could be reduced, or the I would say user experiences could be improved, right? So that is one application wherein you would see that in a lot of systems, you'll see that if you're not entering, let's say, your email ID with @.com, right? x.com, something.com, right? It would not let you move ahead because you've not followed the correct format, right? Or if you enter your, let's say, name in special characters, it would not basically take it forward, right? Because that could not be the name of anyone unless you're Elon Musk's kid, right? So that's a different story, right? But beyond it, I hope this is something which is making sense. All right, so thanks, folks. Thanks for staying with me till the end, and really means a lot. And hope this was meaningful, and thanks for staying again Saturday morning with me. And whoever would wants to explore our courses, please do look into the our website, wherein you can also see a lot many other things as well. Yeah,